Battle of Lepanto, 1571, the greatest naval engagement of the Galley era, which halted Ottoman expansion in the Mediterranean. A Christian coalition led by John of Austria faced the Ottoman fleet in an epic battle that changed the balance of power in the Mediterranean. The world on the eve of Lepanto. At the dawn of the 16th century, the Mediterranean Sea was the stage for rising tensions between European Christendom and the Ottoman Empire. The latter, under Sultan Selim II, had inherited the naval and military power built by his predecessors, including the feared Corsair and Admiral Barbarossa. With Constantinople turned into Istanbul and much of southeastern Europe under Muslim control, the Ottomans aimed to expand westward, pressing into southern Italy, the Greek islands, and the trade routes of the Adriatic. Ottoman naval supremacy was solidified by active shipyards, seasoned sailors, and an economy fueled by tributes from conquered territories. In contrast, the Christian world was divided among the interests of major powers such as Philip II's Spain, the Papal States, and the Republic of Venice. However, the fall of the island of Cyprus in 1570, previously under Venetian control, acted as a catalyst for an extraordinary alliance, the Holy League. Formed under the initiative of Pope Pius V, the Holy League united Catholic kingdoms with the common goal of halting Islamic expansion in the Mediterranean. The coalition was composed of naval forces from Spain, Venice, Genoa, Savoy, Malta, and the Papal States. Supreme command was given to John of Austria, Don Juan of Austria, the illegitimate brother of King Philip II, a young and charismatic military leader who embodied the ideal of a modern crusader. The preparation of the Christian fleet in Messina, Sicily, involved months of training, tactical organization, and diplomatic tension. The Holy League's galleys were stocked with modern weaponry, such as bronze cannons, arquebuses, and lances, in addition to veteran soldiers and religious orders engaged in spiritually mobilizing the combatants. In total, more than 200 ships and about 80,000 men, including sailors, rowers, and soldiers, were gathered. On the Ottoman side, Admiral Muhsin Zad Ali Pasha led a formidable fleet that included swift galleys and fierce warriors, archers, janissaries, and Islamic holy fighters among them. His mission was clear: to maintain control of maritime routes and ensure Ottoman hegemony. The clash between these two naval powers would not be just a military engagement, but a true collision of civilizations with deep religious, geopolitical, and cultural implications. The clash of fleets and the first shots. At dawn on October 7, 1571, the Holy League fleet sailed in tight formation in the Gulf of Patras, near the city of Lepanto in present-day Greece. Opposite them, the Ottoman fleet advanced with confidence. The Christians had around 212 ships, while the Ottomans counted approximately 230. The Turks' numerical advantage was countered by the superior firepower of the Venetian galleasses, large vessels with heavy cannons mounted at the bow and along the sides, which would prove decisive at the start of the battle. Don Juan of Austria organized his forces into three wings: the center under his direct command, the right under Andrea Doria, Genoa, and the left led by Agostino Barbarigo, Venice. To the rear, Alvaro de Bazan commanded the reserve with strategic discipline. The Ottomans mirrored this structure, with Ali Pasha in the center, Uluk Ali on the right, and Mehmet Sirocco on the left. The battle was about to begin, the two forces aligned like pieces on a floating chessboard of war. At sunrise, a favorable wind blew in the Christians' favor, clearing the mist and revealing the full magnitude of the enemy fleet. The battle began with the galleasses opening fire on the approaching Ottomans, devastating salvos that caused confusion and destruction in the Turkish vanguard. Despite the onslaught, Ottoman galleys advanced quickly, colliding with the Christian ships and turning the clash into a brutal hand-to-hand struggle aboard unstable wooden platforms. On the Christian left flank, Barbarigo resisted Sirocco's furious assaults, but was mortally wounded by an arrow. In the center, Don Juan confronted Ali Pasha's flagship head-on. The clash between the two ships was brutal. For hours, Spanish soldiers and janissaries fought amid cannon smoke, in blood, the decks strewn with the dead and wounded. Christian and Islamic flags waved amid blades and cries. Meanwhile, on the right flank, Uluk Ali maneuvered shrewdly, exploiting a gap left by Andrea Doria to attack the more vulnerable Christian ships. It was one of the most critical moments of the battle, threatening the cohesion of the Christian line. However, Alvaro de Bazan's reserve intervened with surgical precision, restoring the formation and repelling the Ottoman advance. The tide of battle began to turn. The climax: blood, honor, and the fall of Ali Pasha. The battle reached its climax when Don Juan of Austria ordered the final assault on the Ottoman flagship. Amid thick smoke, Ali Pasha's ship was surrounded by Spanish and Genoese soldiers. The defenders resisted fiercely but were outnumbered. Ali Pasha was struck by arquebus fire and fell among his personal guards. His head was raised as a trophy, a cruel gesture, yet a decisive symbol of the Christian turnaround on the battlefield. With the fall of the Ottoman admiral, the center of the Islamic fleet collapsed. Many ships surrendered or were captured. The Holy League's banner, a golden cross on a blue field, was hoisted atop the captured flagship, replacing the Ottoman standard. The scene represented more than a military victory. It was a psychological and symbolic turning point in the struggle between Christianity and Islam for Mediterranean dominance. Despite the collapse of the center, the Ottoman right wing, led by Ulugh Ali, managed to retreat with a significant portion of the fleet. His strategic withdrawal preserved valuable ships and men, avoiding total destruction. Even so, around 30,000 Ottoman soldiers perished, 117 galleys were captured, and more than 12,000 enslaved Christians were freed from the holds of Turkish ships. The sea, stained red, had become a sacred field of glory and death. Victory came at a high cost for the Christians as well. About 8,000 were killed, and dozens of ships were damaged or sunk. Andrea Doria and Don Juan emerged as heroes, but the Holy League would soon face challenges in maintaining unity after the triumph. Political rivalries between Venice, Spain, and the papacy re-emerged, limiting the continuation of the offensive against the Ottomans. Still, Lepanto had reshaped the balance of power. In the cultural and religious sphere, the battle was celebrated as a miracle. Pope Pius V attributed the victory to divine intervention, calling for processions and consecrating October 7th to Our Lady of the Rosary. Artists and chroniclers exalted the feat in paintings, poems, and sermons. A young combatant named Miguel de Cervantes, who lost the use of his left hand in the battle, would later describe Lepanto as the greatest occasion that past centuries have seen. The aftermath of Lepanto. The Battle of Lepanto did not eliminate the Ottoman threat in the Mediterranean, but it ended their westward offensive. Never again would the Turks muster a fleet of such magnitude. Their naval prestige suffered irreparable damage. The Greek islands in North Africa remained under Islamic rule for centuries, but the advance toward Italy and central trade routes was halted. Christendom had earned a vital reprieve. Politically, the Holy League dissolved shortly after the victory. Venice, pressured by commercial interests, signed peace with the Ottomans in 1573. Spain refocused its efforts on other fronts, and the papacy continued to combat the Protestant Reformation. Nevertheless, the memory of Lepanto endured as a symbol of Catholic unity in the face of external threats, a rare moment of convergence among fragmented forces. Militarily, Lepanto marked the end of an era. It was the last great galley battle, as sailing ships with more powerful artillery would dominate in the decades to come. The image of hand-to-hand combat aboard rowing vessels became a relic of a vanishing time. Yet the psychological and ideological impact of the victory would echo for centuries. In Christian memory, Lepanto was portrayed as a late crusade, a historical revenge for the fall of Constantinople. Churches were adorned with frescoes of the battle, coins were minted in honor of Don Juan, and religious orders were created to preserve the combative spirit of the faith. The victory was embraced by the Catholic imagination as proof of divine protection against infidels, reinforcing the Church's role as the guardian of Western civilization. Ultimately, the Battle of Lepanto was more than a military event. It was a cultural, geopolitical, and spiritual turning point. It represents the peak of galley warfare and the collision of two worlds, Christian and Islamic, Europe and the East. In a time of fluid borders and fragile alliances, Lepanto revealed the power of faith, courage, and strategy to change the course of history. A battle that, even shrouded in smoke and blood, shines like a beacon in the memory of the West. The Battle of Lepanto remains one of the most dramatic moments in naval history and in the struggle between empires and civilizations. Far beyond the tally of ships and bodies, it symbolizes the clash of worldviews, creeds, and destinies. At its core, Lepanto was not merely a military victory, but an epic outcry of resistance against the relentless tides of history. In the echo of war drums and the torn sails in the wind, still resounds the cry of men who, in the name of faith, culture, and homeland, risked everything upon turbulent waters. And in that sacrifice, they achieved not only victory, but an eternal place in the memory of the world.
For God and glory, may your blades strike true.
Amen. We fight for Christendom.
Men of the Holy League, today we fight for Christendom.